Hey guys, it's Danny. Today we're going to discuss about Dendrobium orchids, the different species and also hybrids, and the different type of care they require. In my previous two orders, I did purchase quite a few Dendrobiums, various species, and basically things that I've never grown before. And the funny thing is, they're really not all the same. They really do not follow a pattern. So let's start with this little guy right here. This is the Dendrobium Victoria reginae. So today is watering day for my orchids. Now this being a dendrobium that loses its leaves normally, we call it a deciduous dendrobium. I was inclined to think that this one should receive a winter rest like other deciduous dendrobiums, mainly the parishii and the anosmum that I already have. But there is a little problem. Now while this guy is losing leaves and is kind of swelling up a little bud right there, not sure if it's a cake or a bud, we'll see. So while it's doing that, it is also growing two new growths right here, and they've already produced quite a lot of roots. So the question is, do I give this guy a winter rest or not? Because it is a deciduous species and theoretically should take a rest, right? Wrong. So here I have the application in which I filled in some information about this orchid. And if we look at growth habit, we can see that this is deciduous, but it doesn't take a dormancy. It needs constant moisture. And this is not something I invented, it's just something I collected from various care sheets and articles, of course. And P.S. if you don't know what this application is, I did make a video on it. You can check out the info card on the screen or the description below. It's pretty much the way I keep track of my orchids, particularly the new ones that I have no experience with. So what this means is that my dendrobium, even if it's deciduous, it needs constant moisture. Pretty much like the Chysis bractensis, which again is deciduous, but it doesn't take a winter rest. This guy is not a dendrobium though. So for the Victoria reginae, I am supposed to maintain the watering regime all year round, even though it is a deciduous orchid. And P.S. you might see the tie that I placed on my pot here, it is meant to keep these little new growths closer to the medium because the shape of the orchid is pretty curved and I would prefer for these guys to anchor themselves in the potting medium. Once they get established, I will remove the tie. Now, I cannot say the same about the Dendrobium parishii. Yes, it is a deciduous dendrobium. It's not a cool grower, but this guy actually benefits from a winter rest, a stop in fertilizer, and a stop in watering while the leaves fall and the canes remain bare. And even though this dendrobium does share a lot of similarities with the Dendrobium Victoria reginae, this one takes a different care regime. And if we take a look, the orchid actually can tell us something. You can see I don't have any new growth, not even keikis, nothing on this orchid at the moment. She is in the process of losing her leaves and going into the dormancy. Also, I did not water this orchid for quite a lot of time and the older pseudobulbs are not shriveling up. Now maybe the Dendrobium Victoria reginae was not obvious enough, but here I have a dendrobium which really does not take a winter rest. This is the Spectabile Big Devil. So as you can see, I have a very plump pseudobulb here, but take a look at the pseudobulbs in the back. They're really shriveled. I watered this guy again about 5 days ago. He's already pretty dry and it's watering day. And this is a clear sign that this orchid really doesn't want to go through any dormancy right now. So even if you don't research something, the orchid can give you signs. All you need to do is observe it. And if you see something out of the ordinary, like excessive shriveling, that's a clear sign that the orchid really does need water. So the two dendrobiums that I just showed you are species. When it comes to hybrids, things are even more complicated because a hybrid can have in its genes both a parent that takes a winter rest and also a parent that doesn't. And this is my Dendrobium baryota. He is a cross between a Dendrobium kingianum, which does require a winter rest, and a Dendrobium bigibbum, which has continuous growth, requires water all year round, and the result is a sort of a kingianum look-alike that doesn't really require such a drastic winter rest. The problem comes when we have different individuals. So I did have a Dendrobium baryota in the past as well, and I didn't go very severe on winter rest. That orchid bloomed beautifully for me even without the winter rest. This year, I am applying the very same treatment to this guy. I have a concern. If we take a look here, what I thought was a flower spike now kind of looks like a keiki. I'm not entirely sure yet. It might very well be a keiki. If it is a keiki, what this means is that this orchid would prefer more of a rest than I provided. So in the case of hybrids, even though there is some stability and you can definitely follow some rules, you can also find those particular individuals that have a little bit of a different gene pool. And in some cases, even though pretty rare cases, you can have the very same hybrid acting differently and requiring different things. Now, since we're talking about the baryota, for the main part, This guy is really easy to care for. It certainly does not require such a drastic winter rest as the Kingianum. If you do search old forum topics, you can see people have serious trouble in reblooming that orchid. But with the Baryota, things are a lot simpler. But I wouldn't be surprised if there are those individuals who take a little bit more from the Kingianum. And this usually happens when you propagate orchids through seeds. You cannot really control the gene pool of every seed. When you marry clone orchids, you practically copy the mother orchid or clone it as best as possible. When we're dealing with seeds, things can always be surprising. So what will this guy do this year? I am currently not sure, but we will see. And sometimes you have those dendrobiums which are off-season, and I've discussed about this in the past. You might have some dendrobiums which are supposed to take a rest now, but they're actually growing new growth. So what do? Well, we need to water them, otherwise they will start to shrivel up. And this is actually the point that I wanted to make. If you have a new Dendrobium species or hybrid that you never dealt with before, the best thing to do is, of course, to research about it. Google it and see what other people say about it, how they care for it, and try to apply their experience to yours, but also do try to read the orchid. If you have an orchid which does take a winter dormancy, but you see that it's starting new growth, things are different and you don't need to provide that winter rest at the moment since the orchid is in active growth. Also read the appearance of the orchid. If it gets extremely shriveled within a short amount of time, that orchid requires water. And even though it's not uncommon for some orchids to get a little bit shriveled in their dormancy, you will observe that these orchids do not get shriveled very fast. Their water supplies run out very slow since they are in a dormancy. But for orchids that do not take the winter sea or decided not to go through the dormancy, the water supply depletes very fast, and that is a cue for you to water. And dendrobiums are actually those types of orchids which tend to surprise me more and more. Given I never had a lot of species, but the more I purchase diverse dendrobiums, the more I see that they don't really have a pattern. If a dendrobium is deciduous, it doesn't necessarily mean it takes a winter rest. Also, a deciduous dendrobium doesn't necessarily need to shed all of its leaves in order to bloom. These are particularities that belong to certain species, and the best thing to do is, of course, research that species, because sometimes they can be quite counterintuitive, which I cannot say about any other species actually. So from this point of view, dendrobiums are quite exciting for me at the moment. I'm happy to learn about them, but as you can see, I do need some help to remind me from time to time which one takes a rest, which one doesn't. I don't have a rule for them. There seems to not be a rule, so the best I can do is research and observe. And that is a good approach, in my opinion, to pass on to you. So I hope this was useful to you guys. I really hope I get some buds on my Dendrobium Victoria reginae, because this guy is supposed to be blue. Well, as blue as you can get. And these little bumps right here, I sure hope they're not cakeys, and they're actually growing slowly but surely. So alrighty guys, thank you for watching this video. Hope this was useful. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe to my channel for daily orchid and plants videos, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye! Small update on the cristata. Remember last year this girl really didn't like the winter rest? This year I'm not providing a winter rest, and I see something growing there. Could it be a spike? Could it be a new growth? I'm not expecting a spike, but we shall see. I'm happy to see this one finally established. It really took a while with this one.